What is up, Pitt fans? Thank you so much for tuning in to Inside the Panthers on YouTube. My name is Stephen Thompson, coming at you with another Inside Pitt post-game report. The Panthers knocked off South Carolina State today by a final score of 86-50. It's always interesting when I get to write, a game preview or something like that for one of these bye games that Pitt plays, because sometimes you'll get to write a story where you get to list off a bunch of stats, or before you list off a bunch of stats, you have to include the qualifier. Keep in mind that there are 362 total teams in college basketball. If you read my, kind of game notes story that I do before every game on InsideThePanthers.com, I rattled off a bunch of stats about South Carolina, a bunch of their rankings in KenPom as well. This is not a very. I hesitate to say it's not a good team because that would undermine my next point. But I think this team is better than their resume would tell you. They're they make just the 209. So their rankings, as far as some statistical rankings go, just to kind of give you an idea of where they are. I think they were in the low 300s or the high 300s, excuse me, mid 300s in KenPom rankings. They make the 289th most three-pointers in America. They make only 27% of those attempts, or they take the 298th most three-pointers in America. They only make 27% of those attempts. That's 345th in Division One. They have the 336th best field goal percentage, and again, that's out of 362 total teams. But this is a team that I think knows that. I think they know that they don't have a ton of shooting talent or offensive talent, because you look at the way they play, and I mean, they still average more than 70 points a game, because they kind of create opportunities. They play fast. They play with good tempo. I believe they're 76th or 77th in tempo. They have a high steal rate at 76th, best nationally. They offensive rebound like crazy. They are the 9th best offensive rebounding team in America, according to KenPom, and they take a ton of extra shots because of that. They create more opportunities for themselves because they play really hard, and that makes them kind of challenging. They're scrappy. They're a little feisty, and Pitt, kind of saw that for a little bit. I mean, they were rusty coming off of a week off. It was pretty clear. You could see. I mean, they defended pretty well for the entire game, but they just couldn't make shots, and they only led by 6 with about 3.5 minutes left to go in the first half. But those final 3 minutes or so in the first half, and then the start of the second half were really, really impressive. And that's when Pitt kind of started to flex their muscles and figure things out and settle in defensively. And then shots started to fall over the final 2 minutes and 25 seconds of the first half, and the first, I'm having to do some math here. That is 4 minutes and 27 seconds, 37 seconds of the second half. So about, 7 or 8 minutes in all, spanning both halves. The Panthers went on an 18-4 run that really opened this game up, got them to an advantage of 20 points. They led by 20 with 15:23 to go in the second half, and it never dipped below 17 after that. They responded really dominantly, and I think picked up a good win, a win that is impressive to me, honestly. I felt like they looked pretty good and survived a team that has given others trouble before. They just look good doing it. And, even I think if the resume is not super impressive for South Carolina State, I thought beating them in the way they did was very impressive. Getting to kind of the details of the game, I mean, obviously the biggest story of the day, new starting lineup, first time in 11 games that the Panthers have used a new starting lineup. Federico and Zach Austin were out. William Jeffress and Guillermo Diaz-Graham were in. And this was clearly a tough decision for Jeff Capel. I mean, especially kind of having to move away from Federico a little bit. Federico's a guy who not only did, Federico, when he committed to Pitt, there was a mutual trust there that I think both sides needed. Capel was kind of on the hot seat. He needed a big man, and there was kind of little reason for Federico to come here. There was kind of little optimism around the program. There wasn't a whole lot of reason for really anyone to sign on to join this program that seemed like it was going nowhere. And then, on the other side of things, I mean, Federico had just been kind of dumped by West Virginia. There was not a whole lot of reason. He was a JUCO center. He didn't have a ton of skills, but he was for everything that he does well, he wasn't a whole lot of stuff that jumps out on tape. And just given the history of his recruitment, there wasn't a whole lot of reason for Pitt to believe that he could have been a real valuable player either. But Jeff Capel saw something in him, and Federico saw something in Jeff Capel and Pitt, and it worked out for both sides. It was a mutually beneficial relationship for both of them, and that's I think what makes it pretty hard for Jeff Capel to kind of admit that Federico's not playing well, and I've got to move. I've got to make a move, and I've got to move away from him at least for a little bit, like he did today. Austin, I'm sure it's the same thing where there's a mutual trust there, and there's a respect and a care, and there's some emotional reasons why these types of decisions are harder than others. But Jeff Capel made it, and it worked out really for everyone. You saw Will Jeffress kind of do everything that he's done for most of this season in this game. I thought he played well, just did the little things. He defended, he rebounded really well. He had, uh, I guess he didn't have a rebound today, but I thought he did a lot of other things really well, like defending. Made an open shot or two, but just kind of did what was necessary. He's a guy that I don't think his impact really always shows up in the box score, but Guillermo Diaz-Graham also played well, I thought too. He scored 7 points, grabbed 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocked shots, and just 1 turnover and 1 foul. That's awesome. He's, really stuffing the stat sheet. And he did it all in just 23 minutes. It wasn't, it was a pretty efficient performance. And then, Federico and Zach Austin didn't play much in the first half, but they got tons of burn in the second half, and that's when they really did a lot of their damage. I mean, Federico scored 6 of his 8 points, grabbed all 4 of his offensive rebounds and all 5 of his rebounds in general. In the second half, he had a steal as well. And Austin, after playing 3 minutes in the first half, scored 12 points in 11 minutes in the second half, made all 4 of his free throws, 3 offensive rebounds, 5 in all, only 1 turnover and a blocked shot. It was clear that he was motivated. Austin, I think, especially. I mean, Federico too, to a certain extent, but those guys were challenged. Jeff Capel demanded more of them, and they took that in stride, and they really played well, I thought, today. I mean, it's South Carolina State. It's not the best competition that they're ever going to face, and then that same thing goes for Diaz-Graham and Jeffress. But everyone kind of did what they were supposed to do in this game, and took this kind of uncomfortable situation in stride and made the best out of it. And I think that gave Jeff Capel a lot of pride that, he was able to see, he was able to make a tough decision and see it not kind of make this team unravel. Cause I think you run the risk of that. I think when anything kind of unfortunate like this happens, when, people aren't playing well or you need more from people, you just need something different, that can upset people. That has the possibility to maybe make people uncomfortable and perhaps negatively affect the strong culture that this team believes they've built. And they didn't let that happen. They didn't let that happen. They kind of stayed strong, stayed focused, and paid off for everyone, which I think is a nice story. And I think that really made Jeff Capel happy that he was able to make a hard decision. Everyone kind of turned it into a positive experience and did something good with it. That's just what you want out of out of a coach. You want him to be able to make tough decisions, and you want players to be able to handle those tough decisions really well. Kind of some other, smaller notes, I guess, from this game. Jalen Lowe, I thought, was really good in this game. I mean, 6 assists to no turnovers is obviously really good. He handled a full court pressure look from the Bulldogs really well, and just didn't shy away in the face of it when, Bub Carrington was a little quiet today, and Ish Leggett and Blake Hinson kind of had some turnovers early in the game, especially against that press that were a little ugly and just a little concerning. And Lowe really helped stabilize things. He also made 2 threes when those shots are and grabbed 3 rebounds when those shots are falling. He's looked like a really good player. And I think like kind of the last 2-ish weeks he's been really, really good after a little bit of a slower start. The shots just weren't falling, but he seems to have found something that works and just looks more comfortable. And just with every game under his belt, I think he's only going to keep getting better. And he's becoming one of the best players that Pitt has on their bench. I also thought that Blake Hinson continues to just kind of carry this team. And show off a versatile game that really wasn't there last year. Scored 19 points, really kept them afloat in the first half when the shots aren't falling, and he was a big reason why they were able to keep a lead in the first half and sustain it all the way through while they were kind of waiting for offense to come from other places. And I think kind of the last thing that I want to touch on is that the Panthers really haven't suffered an embarrassing loss yet. Like with that had kind of that sounds small, but that had kind of been the reality for Capel teams of the past, is that there was always one, maybe two losses on their schedule that just made you shake your head, and you were just it was these bye games that they were losing, and they haven't done that this year. They've taken some hits on the chin. I mean, that loss to Florida didn't look good. Neither did the Missouri loss, quite honestly. But I mean, I think each of their three losses, you can kind of say, yeah, they lost to a better team. Excuse me. I think that was true about, or to a team that was better than them. I think that was true about Florida. It was definitely true about Clemson. Maybe not Mizzou, but they haven't lost a game that you knew that they should definitely win. They haven't lost to a team that they are definitely better than. And I think that's notable because you see around the league, like a lot of or around not even the league. I mean, around the country, a lot of teams are taking bad losses on the chin early in the season. Less so now, but as team kind of develop some continuity and you know figure out who they are more. But early in the season, like any team can be liable to upsets and disappointing losses like that. And Pitt has really avoided those, and that's while those losses to Florida and Missouri, they sting. They're not damning at all to a team that still has aims of making the NCAA tournament, going back there to the postseason for another year. Those will that matters. What you do in the non-conference matters, and avoiding bad losses is just as important as picking up good wins. So Panthers have done a good job of that, and they are kind of picking back up some momentum at the right time because they've got one more game against a low major. They got Purdue Fort Wayne, actually an 11-1 Purdue Fort Wayne, and credit to Chris Carter from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, as he pointed out on Twitter tonight. Uh, they won again tonight. They're 11-1. That could end up being a quad 2 win for the Panthers if Purdue Fort Wayne is able to keep climbing up the net rankings. So, kind of a big game next week, or next week in 4 days, and then there's 10 days off for the Christmas holiday, and then the Panthers are back in action with the start of ACC play as they travel to take on Syracuse. So exciting times for the Panthers. They're building some momentum, made some adjustments, feel like they've maybe figured some things out. We'll see. Like I said, a good team comes to town next week that they'll have to contend with. So we'll see how that turns out. But I want to thank you all for tuning in to another Inside Pitt post-game report. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to us on YouTube. That's youtube.com/@InsideThePanthers. And then follow our reporting at InsideThePanthers.com. Like I said, appreciate you all tuning in, and I'll see you next time.